All right. So what you see here is a chat system that I built with Langchain, OpenAI, Next.js, and TypeScript. And I evolved this project in 3 different steps: chat 1, chat 2, and chat 3. For example, for the first one, I focused only on the UI UX and making the call to OpenAI API, getting the answer, and stream it to the browser screen. For example, let's just say, hey, write me a form about USA. And as you can see, answer is coming, but it is not really formatted, but it's doing the job. This is proof that we are connecting to the backend and getting an answer. Also, let's see, ask it to write a basic HTML page code. And it is bringing in the answer in a basic markdown format, which is okay, but not good enough. That's why we have to open up chat 2. Here, if we ask the same question, give me a small sonnet about the world. All right, look at that. Coming in, nicely formatted, still streaming, and much better than last time. This time, let's ask it to give me a simple React function. And look at that. It's very nicely formatted. And this time it has a copy button. If I hit that, and this is just a visual cue that this button is at work. The next version, I removed it. So now let's see if I open up a notepad and paste it, it's there. So it's good and functional, but it has a problem. If I say, my name Moose and I live in Japan, and it treats me well, but if I ask it, where do I live? It says, sorry, can't answer. Then what is my name? And it can't answer. But this memory or contextual memory will be very important when you're chatting to a bot, especially when you're writing code and need help. That's why we have to go to the chat number 3. Before we go, I want us to see. I just wanted to show that this clear message button works. Hit that, clears everything out, which is great. Now let's go to chat 3. Now this one brings in everything, inherits everything from the old ones. Like for example, if I say, give me a simple JS function code, right? And it does it. Explanation, all of them has copy functionality. Everything is functional as we have seen before. But this time, when I say, my name is Trump and I live in Florida. Okay. All right. It reads me nice. Okay. But now if I ask it, what is my name? Oh, knows my name. And now if I ask it, give me some of the main cities in my state. And I'm not mentioning any state name here. Let's see what it does. And there you go. From memory, it remember I'm from Florida, and it gives me Miami, Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville. They're all cities from Florida. And also when I clear the message and ask, what is my name? Still remembers it. And even when I refresh the whole screen, then ask, where am I from? From Florida. So Now we have contextual memory added, and it's almost a full-blown chat system. That said, throughout this video, I'm going to walk you through the code evolution of this app step by step, which will include code refactoring, building custom hooks, connecting to remote databases, etc., and more. Now, before we go hit the code, let's go to a diagram to understand the architecture better. All right, so I just wanted to start at chat 1, where I focus on nothing but functionality and UI UX. Here, the architecture is pretty simple. I start with the page under the pages folder and the moves chat 1 page. And that's where the index file is, which is a very simple one. All it's doing is bringing in the content component. The content I organize under the components page view. And for this specific version, which is the chat 1 under Moose GPT-1 folder, and I'm calling it Moose GPT content intro. And at this point, it is bringing in two other components, the chat messages and the user input bottom. Is basically, this is where the input form is, and chat messages is the block where I display the return messages. And at this point, since the sidebar doesn't really have much, so I didn't bother separating it. So once we collect the user input from here, we send it to this guy right here, and here we make the call to our Next.js backend. This is the Next.js endpoint under pages API chat.ts, and this is where we instantiate the model using LangChain. And when we do a model.call, it finally makes the request using the user prompt to OpenAI API, and OpenAI sends a response, and we give it back to this content, and this content sends it to the chat messages for formatting and creating the output UI UX. That said, let's go to the code. Okay, so we are at the code level. So let's follow our diagram. So here we have pages, Moose GPT-1 index, pages, Moose GPT-1 index file, and this is our page URL, as we can see here, Moose GPT-1 page. And here we're bringing in the Moose GPT content intro, as mentioned here, and the location would be component page view Moose GPT-1. So let's track that down. Component page view Moose GPT-1, and this is our main content file. Here we are declaring the chat messages state is loading state, and this chat messages will have this type messages, and this will contain two attributes. One is user, which is a boolean. This denotes whether it's a user message or an AI message, and the other one is just a text string, and this will hold the actual message. And is loading is a boolean starting with false, and here we have a handle chat submit and a handle clear message. The clear message button on the left sidebar right here, this guy, and once that is hit, we just set the chat messages to an empty array, thus clearing everything. And we'll come back to this one, but let's go over the UI UX a little bit. As you can see, this is the left column of sidebar. Just because it has only one item, so I just kept it here. No point to separate it, but later when I keep adding stuff to it in some future video, I'll separate it. Now let's move on to the main body. This is the top chat block, and this is our conversation display block, and this is where I am bringing in the chat message, this guy right here. And then at the bottom we have user input bottom, which is basically this guy right here. Let's start with this guy, right? So here we're sending our top function, this chat message handler. We're sending it as a prop here. Now let's go track this guy down. User input bottom should be under component, UI UX, GPT-1. And this is what it looks like. Here we are setting a type for the prop, which is the onSubmit function, which takes the user input string. And here for the first time, we're actually declaring this user input state with a user input function. And here we have the real chat submit button. Let's track that down from our UI. And this is the UI form for the user input. This is the submit button. And this is the actual input element. And here at the onChange function, we are declaring the set user input and setting the user input to e.target.value. So whatever is the user inserts here, it updates the user input up there. And from the form onSubmit, handle chat submit, once the onSubmit button is clicked, this function gets activated. And here we are finally sending the user input to the onSubmit function that we just got from the prop, from this guy right here. So now let's go back. So here now, go to the handle chat submit up here, open that up. So finally we got our user input or user prompt, setting the set is loading to true. That's where the spinner keeps spinning. And the first time what we do is update the chat message with the user prompt. Here we actually set this is user to true and set this user input text message to the user input to the text attribute. And this is how we actually show the user prompt on the screen. Next, for the first time, we actually make the call to the Next.js API backend, just as mentioned here. This prompt, we're making the fetch. And this one is located at pages API chat.ts. So let's track that guy down. And for a better understanding, let's put those two side by side. I'll be right back. Okay, so this is our original content file. And then here we have our Next.js backend endpoint, chat.ts, as mentioned right here. This guy. So let's see side by side. Okay, so here we are actually making that call to this guy, and we're taking that user input and making part of the body as a prompt. And in here, we're collecting that prompt from rec.body. And for the first time, we're actually bringing in chat OpenAI, which comes from Langchain chat model OpenAI. And here we're instantiating our OpenAI chat model with temperature, model name, and streaming to true so that all the tokens are given to us as a token stream. And the callback here, we're passing that token and making it part of response.write. And this response is basically Next API response. We're getting it from Next. And with that model, we make the call, model.call. And in here, we are giving it a system message and a human message. With the system message, we can actually shape up the nature of our chatbot. But here I'm keeping it very simple. You are just an AI assistant, simple. And as a human message, I'm sending that prompt that we just collected from right here. And these guys are coming from Langchain schema. And in the end, once the streaming finishes, we're ending the response with the response.end. All right, now let's look at here what's happening with the response we're getting. We're using a function called getReader from response.body. And with this getReader, we are reading that response and putting into this variable. And here, once we receive the reader, if the reader is present, then we set loading to false. And that way the spinner stops spinning. And here, this is actually the most complex part of this module. Here we declare the AI response as an empty variable. And then we create an infinite loop with while true, because at this point, we want to capture the stream as it comes. So from the reader, we get two items. One is done, which is a Boolean. This one denotes if this is positive or true. This one denotes that the stream has ended, and the value is basically the text response that we're getting, the whole stream. So once this done is positive, then we break out of this loop and move to the next one. But if this is not true, that means the stream keeps on coming. So what we do is we take this variable and dump everything in as it comes. And we pass this value here with a text decoder dot decode. And this is where the text decoder coming from. The text decoder is a default browser class that actually takes a stream and converts it into the proper code points. Basically gives us a string. So this response now, we're going to go ahead and fill it up, this AI response with as a string. And now comes the challenging part. Basically, now we're going to be updating our message with the stream gradually. Basically, what's happening here is we're using the set chat message because the chat message is the block that we're going to be displaying on the browser. So we are updating it gradually. Here, what's happening is pretty much we're collecting the last message and then we're passing it through, making sure it's a non-user message, which is an AI message, and also making sure that the stream is still going on. As it's going on, we just gradually concatenate it to the message here, right here, AI response. And when the message is finished, we just label it is user false, making sure it's an AI message, and add the full message to our chat message object. But as long as it keeps coming, we update it gradually, thus it displays on screen as a stream. And that being done, let's go see what's happening here in the chat messages. Once we receive the chat messages, we just map it out. We use the index as a key, and the message, we just send it inside our chat message component, which is basically this guy right here. And we take the Boolean is user message dot is user, because if this is true, then this guy will understand that this is a user message. But if it is false, it's going to display it as a AI message. And then this is the simple text message, message.text, it's the content of the message. Now let's bring in this chat message here. Next. All right, so here's our chat message, and it belongs to UI UX, who's GPT-1 chat message, just like we described right here. And now we can see as we send these props to it, it is receiving those props. And this is the interface for the props type, Boolean string. And pretty much all it's doing is creating the UI UX. At this point, it's pretty simple. It's message styles. If this is a is user, if it's a user message, it's doing a certain background. Its background is blue. And if this is a AI message, the background would be white, just like here. Let's say if I say hi, this is what's it doing, blue and white. And the icon style, just if I start, and the icon, if it is a user, then it uses the user circle. But if it is the AI, that means if it is false, then adds the FA robot, as right here. And then this is the actual output, the message style, icon style. And here, one thing we're doing is we're bringing in React Markdown and then putting the message inside. This is our actual text of the message. And this is what we're talking about. This is the text message. And that's all it's doing. That being said, this concludes the part that involves our chat 1 module. Let's move to chat number 2. All right, let's get started with chat number 2. Just as a refresher, basic HTML code, page code, right? This is what got added in this version. Also, this copy feature, quickly and it works. Great. Now let's go to the diagram. Let's see what changes are looking like. All right, so this is our chat 2. Here we add the prettification code, like basically formats and everything, as you saw before. And we refactored our chat streaming part into a hook. So the rest is pretty much the same. So on this one, the hero would be this guy, the hook, and this guy, the chat message. This one has all sorts of libraries involved to get the code formatting right. Also, as you can see, it brings in a Sass module for styling, and one extra component is here called copy button, and this is the one responsible for that copy feature. So once you compare with the first one, it had only 2 components and very simple structure, but now we modularized it with a streaming hook and added CSS and added more libraries in here that you will see in the code. And we made a very small change with our Next.js endpoint. I mean, this time, instead of the chat.ts, we have moosechat.ts. The rest of the functionality is the same. So let's hit the code. All right, so we are the code, and let's take care of the small part. Let's go under pages, API, and let's see what moosechat looks like. So everything else is here is the same, except we added a little bit of prompt engineering here. We gave the guy a name and made its personality talkative, and told it to follow the context, maintain the context. And if it doesn't know something, it should just truthfully say, I don't know. And also, just so that our styling remains steady, we just mentioned that it should always answer in markdown format, because sometimes it's especially with the 3.5, it just gives you different types, and then that might break your formatting, right? Just to make sure here, let's say, what is your name? There you go. Name is Rico. Great. All right, so that's pretty much it for this guy. But now let's focus on the changes, right? So that would mean, let's go to our main file, page view, GPT-2, content, and look, it's much thinner and smaller, lost a lot of fat. But to explain properly, let's go put the old one and this one side by side. So as you can see, we have our content intro from GPT-1 and the content pretty from GPT-2 side by side, just so that you can understand the change better. Here in the old one, the handle submit had all sorts of things in there, the streaming code, the API call, etc., etc. But here, now much more streamlined. So all it's doing is just calling a hook, passing that API URL to it, and getting a chat message is loading and a whole bunch of other things back, which it is using throughout the rest of the program, and everything else remains the same. But we cut down a lot of code here. Now let's put our hook and this guy side by side so we see what's going on. All right, so we brought in our hook, use chat streaming right here, and our content is right here. And as we mentioned right here, that's our streaming content hook under the hooks folder, and that's exactly where it is. Now let's compare the two. Okay, so basically what's happening is now all that chat message is loading. These we used to declare in here, but now we are declaring all of them here. And then the submit message is the function. Pretty much took the whole submit chat function and brought it over here. The rest of the code is pretty much the same. It is loading, and then we're setting up the user message first, with set chat messages. And then this is where we're making the call to the endpoint, and the endpoint variable coming right from here because we are actually passing it. Also, we organized our, the types a little bit here. Like, for example, the message now we're bringing in from the global interface, which is right here. Global interface, that's where we declare all our states that we reuse in one file. And right here, the messages interface. So let's go back. And once the response is received, we're just doing what we did before, created a reader and put everything through an infinite loop, and using this set chat messages actually showed all the streaming data to the browser. And after all said and done, we're returning chat messages, is loading, submit message, and set messages. So right here, we're receiving all that, and we maintain the handle chat submit right here. And this submit message, we are actually filling it up with user input. This user input, just like before, we got from right here, from this function, and from this user input bottom component, and everything else remained the same. The clear message at the sidebar, and this is the clear message function. They all remain the same. So now let's go and look what is happening in here, the chat message. From here, everything looks the same, but let's look into this module next. All right, so let's go look for this chat message, where it is. As we saw here, it's under component UI UX Moose GPT-2, and this is right here. We also have copy button and the CSS or SAS module. So let's go find it here, UI UX 2. And before we dig into this chat message, we just want to quickly look into this chat message module CSS. This is just styling, right? I don't really have to explain anything here. So let's go here, chat message. And in here, we're actually bringing that SAS module right here, styles. And we are calling styles, message container right here to style up our container. But in here, though, now we see, besides our regular markdown, we have a whole component in there. Like it's a prop components, and we're sending code block, the whole code block. So let's see what code block is. It is right here, code block, and the type is code component. This is basically a React component type, which denotes a component block. And we need this block to pass along inside our React markdown to style everything properly. And if we dig into this, we see a whole bunch of attributes. I mean, if you just study this styling library, which is React syntax highlighter, right? So we are bringing in an object called Prism as syntax highlighter. This also brings in the themes, right, from its stylings. There are a whole bunch of other themes, but I chose the dark one because this is the best. Also, we are bringing in the copy button, which we will get to a little later. But right now, let's see, we are getting this code component from this React Markdown library. And with that, we are actually writing this up. This is basically, we are finding a match wherever you find language dash whatever, because what happens is if you go and study this a little bit, you go to a code block and inspect, you'll see that AI gives you the code block with this kind of class, specific class, language dash JS, React, whatever, right? So that's what we are targeting. And then we are bringing in that syntax highlighter component and passing a custom style object in there, which is basically this custom style. And we're creating a record with a string and CSS properties. This is a default React type for a styling object like that. And we're bringing in the dark theme right here from here. And we are passing along some custom styling here, like font size, highlight, whatever. So with this and with this code block right here, this is our actual results, children. And we're using the same children, which is basically the output from the AI. We're also calling in the copy button right here. And here we are creating a prop called text to copy, and we're converting that into string, that children object. And let's go inside copy button. It's a very simple one. It's bringing that text to copy text in, a string in, because this is a string. And with the navigator dot clipboard dot write text, it's taking that text and copying it to the clipboard. And since this is chat 2, I just kept this alert so that whenever we see something, I just click on it and it just alerts me, but it copies anyway. So once this is copied, its job is done. The rest is just button stuff. So with that, we build our chat message, and the result is right here, this stylish code block with copy functionality. That's pretty much all we added to our version 2, chat 2. Now let's move to chat 3. All right, okay, let's look at our last module, chat 3. Just as a reminder, let me just put it, okay, my name is Bruce. Look at that. It actually remembered at the beginning of this video, we actually gave our name as Trump, and now it remembered. You know, this is what we're dealing with, long-term memory. Now let's see the architectural change with the diagram. All right, so we are at the chat 3. Here we add the chat memory and do some more refactoring. So let's take care of the small stuff. I mean, everything else is pretty much the same. We did not touch the use chat streaming hook, but we did work on this chat message component. As you saw before, it had a bunch of extra functions in there. So I just abstracted those away and put them under a utilities or utils folder as moosechatutils.tsx. And here, as you saw before, we were declaring the whole model right in that Next.js backend endpoint. But instead, this time, we abstracted that block away, created a service, a reusable service, so that we can call this OpenAI service from any other module. I mean, this is specifically helpful when your application gets larger and you need a component, a reusable component to fit into a whole bunch of other places. Let's say this is a very modular approach. And then the biggest thing here was adding the chat memory, utilizing the Upstash cloud-based Redis database. And this component also can be abstracted out, but at this point, I haven't done that, but in the future I will. That being said, let's hit the code. All right, so as you can see, I have the old and the new chat messages side by side, one from the GPT-2 and the other one is from GPT-3 right here. So let's look at the difference. So right here, it has a whole bunch of functions and the styling code block. Takes a long time just to get to the actual content of the function, but you look at here, nice and skinny and clean, right? Lots of extra imports that are not even necessary. Look at this imports here, right? It has been cleaned up pretty good. And here, let's see where it went. It went according to this guy under utils, moosechatutils. So let's go here and moosechatutils, and that's exactly where it went. All the imports are here and has all the necessary functions and the code block right here. And all we're doing here is bringing that in from that moosegptutils and prettifying our chat message block. That being said, now let's get to the better stuff, the backend API, where we added the memory. All right, so we have two of our backend Next.js backend endpoints side by side, moosechat and moosechat memory. As we go back here, 3 find moves chat memory belongs to 3 under pages API, and chat 2 pages API just moves chat TS, right? So this is what we are concerned about. In here, we actually abstracted this OpenAI service out, and here we actually had the whole thing, the model declared right in that endpoint. So let's see our code. So as you can see here on MoveChat 2, the model is declared right here and instantiated. But in here, we only pulled in the OpenAI service right here and passed in the response, the temperature as string, and the actual API we're going to be using. That made it much smaller and manageable. It is now a reusable service component. So let's go find what that looks like under services and OpenAI service. That's what it looks like now. So basically, it's an independent service taking in the response as the next API response, temperature as a number, and model name as a string. And that's exactly what we're passing. So at this point, if you want to use ChatGPT 4, you can just change the name here, temperature 2.9, change it here, and this will comply. Now a reusable modular component. That being said, now let's look at the rest of it. Okay, now that we have our model created, now we have to create our memory. For that, we bring in buffer memory and upstash Redis chat message history. They're coming from Langchain stores message upstash Redis, and the other one, buffer memory, coming from Langchain memory. So with this, we need this database URL and the upstash key, API key. This one actually we can declare right here in our .env. I have an example here, just like that, upstash API key. And this we get from right here, upstash. This is a serverless cloud-based database provider, and I'm using Redis, and this is their pricing, and I'm using this free block right here. This is what my account looks like, and this is my database that I created. So let's click on it. Right, so this is where you're going to find all the details, and in here, if you click this button, it will give you the API key. That's where you collect it from. And you can click here to check out your usage. Most importantly, this is where the database is. And this is my session key, the hard-coded session key that I'm using. And this is where all the conversational data that it's collecting from. Now let's go back. And with this memory, this time we are calling in conversation chain coming from Langchain chains. And here we just pass along our model as LLM, memory as memory, and then simply call chain.call input to pass our prompt that we collected from here. With this prompt, get our response from the API. With rest.end, we close down our response. And with that, we conclude this video where we build a chat system in 3 steps. Step 1, just focusing on functionality using Langchain, OpenAI, Next.js, and TypeScript. And in the chat 2, we add our formatting and prettification code and refactored into a custom hook. And chat 3, with everything, we did some more refactoring and added chat memory with Langchain buffer memory and upstash Redis database in the cloud. More to come. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.